Welcome to another episode of Management Unfiltered. It's going to be a great one, and I hope you guys are ready. My name is Kirk Teachout, and
I'm Zach Shelley, and today I'm dropping a hammer on Kirk because this episode is not an easy one. And even though I prepared for it and I'm just throwing it and lobbing it, I told Kirk I'm going to string him up with questions, which more so I'm just going to lob him questions that I think won't be too difficult to answer. But we're talking about toxic positivity in leadership. So this episode is named When Good Vibes Only Becomes a Leadership Failure. And I think this is one of those things where we're so anti-toxicity in the practice, and we talk about the toxic behaviors, which are the classic ones, right? We're gossiping in the office, we're complaining behind other people's backs, we're discussing pay, we're creating all these underlying cancerous style behaviors, right, Kirk? What are some other things that you found that are true toxic traits that we talk about all the time?
I mean, allowing things to happen, right? So like as a leader, you're only as effective as what you allow, right? And if there are performance issues, if people aren't pulling their weight, other people on your team do see it, right? And so then your inability to, or your lack of proactiveness in keeping your team going and keeping them accountable is a toxic trait to the rest of your team.
Yeah.
There's so many things without getting into a rabbit hole. But I will have to say that this is something that we're talking about today, the things that we're talking about today anyway, is something that I have fallen into.
Yeah, me too. I think all of us as leaders have it. And honestly, I want to say, I'm going to hammer the docs here for a second. Doctors are very guilty of this toxic positivity mindset in the aspect of when the front office is like, hey, we're overwhelmed. And they're like, no, you're fine. You'll be okay. We'll get through this. And it's like, you're not giving them tools or abilities to get through it. You're just saying they're going to be fine and get through it, meaning just continue to do your job. And that's a lot of this toxic positivity that I'm talking about. And I don't know if you agree with that, Kirk, but like there's a lot of like that with doctors because they're chair side, they're not understanding the rest of the operations and the practice. And they're saying, well, it can't be that hard, right? And we have that mindset of like, just get through it, pull your pants up and let's just like buck up and do it. Which there are some instances we can do that, but I feel like we use that as a blanket just to not resolve what's actually going on.
For sure. So what are these questions that you're going to be lobbing at me?
Well, we're going to lob them as we go. Okay, Kirk. But one of these things is why, let's talk about why leaders use toxic positivities. And this is the aspect of, we don't have a checklist of like how I'm going to be a toxic leader, right? Like I want everybody listening to this to understand, like, we're not just sitting here like, okay, I'm a toxic leader and this is how I do it. But these are things that we do that cause this toxicity in the practice. So it's very uncomfortable, but they're also powerful when we do it the right way, but it's also powerful when we do it the wrong way. So first one is avoiding conflict and hard conversations.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that was a hard one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this is kind of the rabbit hole we'll dive through. So we're just going to hit on these points and we're going to talk back and forth because, like I said, Kirk, I know you don't have my notes, but I know these are things that you could just speak on and I can speak on just without the back of your hand. So what happens when we avoid conflict? What happens when we avoid hard conversations? And you already hit the nail on the head with allowing, right? What we allow. But like, what does this look like when we're avoiding conflict? Like, how do we avoid the conflict and what does that create?
Because in from a like just a personal standpoint, right? We always want people to like us, right? But our job as leaders is not to be liked. Okay? It's to be respected. No, so it's to effectively move people in the right direction, right? To the performance of their job duties and to the business in general. So when we have someone, or let's just say ourselves. So if I am not having tough conversations with my team members who are underperforming, who are gossiping, who are not treating patients up to the standard of the office or the business, then you're going to lose really good people. Like I already said, I, you know, I believe, and it's fact. It's not just what I believe, but when you are allowing people to underperform and do these negative things, these toxic things, then the people who are really good and are doing the right thing are going to see that. And they're going to slowly lose respect, and you're going to slowly lose effectiveness with them when you ask them to do something. Well, Jane over here is not doing that, so why do I have to do that?
Yeah, there's a level of accountability that's different from team member to team member, and in a big aspect, the allowing factor of this is an enabling factor. Because if you're allowing it, you're enabling it, you're continuing that, and it's getting deeper and deeper. Which then, in turn, honestly, you turn these good team members into awful team members because they see, oh, well, that's allowed. I'm just going to do it too, right? Why am I putting so much heart into this when Jane can do whatever the heck she wants? Like there's no willpower to be your best anymore in that aspect.
Right. Right. So how then, I know I have a way to do this, and I think we're pretty much on the same page with this. But, we're going over problems, but let's go over solutions to these too. So like we're allowing it to happen. Team members, we as a leader, we now do not have the reins of the team. We're not as effective. How do we turn that around?
Well, my mindset, which I think we're going to align a lot on this, you have to take ownership first as the leader.
Extreme ownership, you may say.
Extreme by, Jocko style. With that aspect, you need to meet with the entire team and take ownership of that in front of every single one of them and state precisely what you've been allowing and state that now it's unacceptable, and then state the expectations moving forward.
Yeah. And if that is too heart-wrenching, which it can be, something that I try to do as well, anytime we have these meetings, typically, the first time somebody hires me in general, it's because they're not effective as leaders, right? That's the first thing we've got to overcome. Because moving forward, if we can't implement anything in their practice, then it's not gonna work. So we have to get leadership on board. So typically the first thing that I have them say is have the team meeting, like you said, right? But I just have them say, I'm sorry, right? I'm sorry. I haven't been the leader that you needed up to this point. I'm working on myself. I've hired a coach. I'm working, with them and for them to help you as well in the practice to be successful. But moving forward, I will be the leader that you need. Not that you want, that you need.
Yeah, and I think that's super important for them to know. And with this aspect, because I don't want to forget this statement. I heard when I first started the practice, one of the hygienists was like, they'll go back to their normal ways in 2 weeks. That is the expectation with a lot of people. So you have to be consistent with what you say you're going to do. You have to have that follow through, and you have to push and make sure you actually keep everybody accountable, because they expect you to let up. They expect to adhere to something for a short period of time and then go back to what they were used to.
For sure. Yeah, consistency is everything. So I remember, really the most successful people that I work with typically are the ones that, they're, after a few weeks, they keep having those difficult conversations, right? And then things just start thriving, right? It's kind of like working out, right? The first 2 weeks are the worst because you're sore every single day. But then after 2 weeks, you really start to get into a rhythm. Imagine that. Things that we talked about already. You get into a work-life rhythm where these difficult conversations are the norm, but they get easier. Your threshold for it gets a lot better. And you start seeing this trend where it goes up and it starts getting better. For some people, it takes a little longer because maybe team members are not the right people. But for the most part, it trends upward really quickly after those first 2 weeks of consistency. But you got to make sure you have accountability later on because, I've seen 4 to 6 months later, they're like, man, I really don't want to have this conversation. I'm like, do you remember what it was 6 months ago? You remember how you weren't having those difficult conversations? Do you remember what happened when you started having them? Yeah. Remember, you have to have those small conversations.
Let's have another fun one.
Oh boy. I'm ready.
I like this one. Celebrating resilience instead of fixing root causes.
Yeah.
Like let's think about this, right? Like you're shorthanded up front and, Doc's like, you did great. Like you handled everything. You're able to do it. You push through. Let's just keep it this way. Right? Like they can do it. They did it once. Or, figuring out, breaking barriers and systems that are broken. And like we made it through, so everything's good, right? Like we made it on that the patient was happy, so everything's good. But then we look at it like, yeah, the team can get through this, it'll be fine. And we tend to sweep these things under the rug that actually have these deep rooted issues that are broken systems in the practice. But we're just like, our team's resilient, they can work through anything. So let's just leave it like it is.
We learn way more from our failures and opportunities, right? Than we do doing things really well. When people see us talking about these kinds of things now, it's mainly because we've been through all of these things, right? We've done these things and have seen the effects of it and the second and third consequence of it, and now we've had to work our way up to a leadership level that is beyond that, right? We've had to become better people. So I will say that with this particular topic in general, we went from a normal, really, a normal sized team down to a very small team within a very short period of time. And, I remember going through that where the only people left in our practice was our associate, my wife, myself, and our hygienist. And our numbers never went down, but it was incredibly difficult, to keep pace. And we did, but once again, it wasn't because we wanted to, right? It was because we had to. But I will say that the conversation that you have with the people that are left is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And that, again, it comes down to consistency of taking your words and turning them into actions. So I remember that conversation we had with the team that was left, and it was just like, look, I know this is tough. It may get a little tougher, but if you stick with us, I promise I will take care of you.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, a year later, we rebuilt that team. It's thriving. It's so much better than it was when it was just, a small team. But sometimes you got to go through those growing pains, right? But if you lose a front office person or lose a doc, I know somebody right now that like they're down really 2 docs and they can't find anybody, but they still have those bills coming in. So it's like, how do you do that? How do you get through this process when it's very difficult to find people? I know a lot of people are having, staffing issues and trying to find people.
That poses into another way that shows up day to day, which is slogans, constant slogans. We've got this, but have no plan. What do we have? What do we have? So a lot of times we use these blanket, which I'm going to mend this with another one so we can kind of hash it all out together, which is leaders confusing emotional control with leadership. So tying the slogans with this emotional control of like, how do we shift their mind emotionally to where they're not stressed out because you're saying we've got this, or it's going to get better. This is going to change. But really, as a leader, we have no idea or no plan on how that's going to change, how that's going to get better, what we're going to do. And that's where you have to be very, very careful of words you choose for your team, because if there's no actual change or things don't get better, where you're slowly going to die a painful death
Yep.
in this leadership role.
Yeah, there's only so much of a serotonin drip that you can drop, you know, with that the first couple times, right? And this is actually something that I'm working on with my kids, is not saying necessarily I'm proud of you, but saying you should be proud of yourself, right? I'm proud of you gives them that drip. And what happens is over time is it makes them reliant on me to get that approval, right? So what's going to happen is they're going to always be searching for approval somewhere. Versus if now I'm constantly instilling in them for them to be proud of themselves, then they can find it in themselves to find the approval, which can be a long, obviously a long-term thing. So it's the same thing with our teams, right? We can only do so much for so long, but if we don't put our actions with our words, then it doesn't matter. And to the defense of our leaders that are listening, that are falling into these traps, sometimes we just don't know where to go. We don't know how to do it. But I will say that if you reach out, like, swallow your pride, get courage. I'm not saying liquid courage. I don't drink, so it's really easy to say. But swallow your pride, get some courage, and reach out to somebody. The most generous people around you, the people who are doing really well for the most part, are more than happy to give you advice, free advice, right? Reach out to me, reach out to Zach. I wasn't meaning that we were being super successful at this, but what I mean is, like, reach out to somebody. Yeah, I mean, we are happy to help.
I have a meeting later today with somebody that's struggling. Or I said, hey, drop me a message.
Yeah.
Here's my calendar link. Let's chat.
Yeah.
It's very simple. It's an easy thing that you can do. Even if we're not able to help you, just being able to vocalize your issues, there may be something that you dive from that you realize, oh, maybe I could fix this to start.
Or we may know somebody who could help. Yeah. Right. And that's the point, is that, we, for instance, I love the phrase, your network is your net worth, right? To be a giver in a way that you're able to move people around. It's like, it's not about me. It's not about what I can get. It's about what can I give in value with the people around me, and giving people a solution. So yes, I would say really not trying to tie, those words that we're using to just emotional drops, right? But actually putting action, sitting down and actually thinking about, how can I do this? And if I don't have a solution, the second thing I would do is go to ChatGPT. That would be the easiest. You don't even have to ask anybody anything. Then the third thing is asking somebody like me or you, or getting in the groups and asking, like, hey, I need help. I don't know what's going on here. I saw a post in your group this morning about, a team member's boyfriend coming in smelling of pot, right? How do I handle this? I'm like, my first thought was Will Gilmore, right? Was like, hey, he's the compliance guy. He can give you a solid legal answer on what you should do here, right? Because there are people out there that can help. But I'm gonna throw this one in here, because this is something I've fallen into, of just going in and saying, hey, you're doing great, even when people are not.
So that's actually right into my next point, which I love. Let me just point out a couple. I want to put out a couple notes that I have in here. So first is a red flag to look for in your practice when you're looking for toxic leadership. When people stop speaking honestly in meetings, when they start getting quiet and they don't start saying things, that's an instant red flag that your team is no longer comfortable communicating with you, and that's a area you need to diagnose very quickly. And then another point I want to make is you don't get loyalty by pretending things are fine. You get loyalty by telling the truth. So you need to remember, be honest with your team. So with what you're saying, though, is how gratitude can be weaponized, right? It can be used to shut down legitimate concerns. It can also, like, you can be, how do I want to explain this? Like, you can give gratitude. You can show this of like, hey, you're doing a great job, but these are the things I still need you to continue to work on, right? So you're highlighting the things that are doing really well, but asking for improvement isn't negativity. It's asking them to take ownership over something and to improve their skill that they're catching on to. Because I have done that also, where I see somebody struggling. I'm like, hey, you're doing a great job. Like, you're going to get the hang of it. Yeah. Rather than saying, hey, I'm going to acknowledge some things that may be small, but I want to recognize what you're doing well. And this is how I've shifted my leadership. You have a great smile when you greet the patients, but you're not doing all the tasks that I need you to do when you're checking them in. Yeah. So keep up this part, because I want that to stay. We need to show gratitude on the things that are working. But what we don't do is the latter end of like, okay, this is great and this isn't. Like, we can normalize like, this sucks and I see it. And not saying that you suck, but like, this situation, it sucks. It's awful. Or we don't have the answer for that right now. And normalizing things like that of just saying, hey, Kirk, you're doing really good here. You are not doing good here. And this is where I see you struggling. And that's okay, because I'm going to teach you how to be better. And then honestly, your team's going to start saying, wow, like, thank you for not just saying I'm doing a good job. Like, you're showing me what I'm not doing well. Most people will respond and saying, thank you. I didn't think I was doing it right. And I was been really struggling with like, am I doing my job well? High performers will do that.
Yeah. Well, and you're lowering your effectiveness, like your word, right? So, I would walk around and I would walk past sterilization and just casually say, hey, you're doing a great job, right? But it watered down them actually doing a great job, right? Just by blanketly saying that to keep vibes good, right? It really diminished the power of those words, versus, like you were saying, like, being honest and calling it how it is, but doing it in a way that's effective. And, everybody loves a compliment sandwich, right? It's like, hey, this is what I see you do really well. I would like for you to work on these things. Here are the resources on how to do it, and here's how you succeed at it. But, remember, like, keep doing this because I really love how you do that.
So a couple tips. I want to share some tips. Like, we've already given some of like, not weaponizing gratitude. We're not telling you can't be a thankful leader. We're not telling you can't encourage your team. But what I'm telling you is there are things that you're doing that are quietly growing a toxic culture in the practice. And really a lot of these things where you end up, the things you tolerate end up underground, right? And it's a low-lying thing that's where things grow. That's where roots take hold, is they grow quietly. Like, you'll end up losing high performers quietly because they're like, this is not for me and I can be in a better place. They're not going to speak up. They're not going to do these things. So when you are having positivity in the office, what is it tied to? Or do you have an ability to say, hey, great job. Why are you saying great job? Start using facts in the practice of great job handling that patient that was upset with you today. This is what I saw you do. And this is why I'm telling you did a great job. Incentivizing these things that are actually providing growth to the practice and depth to the team. Not encouraging your team through a massive struggle. Like when they're short-staffed and they get through, yes, you can encourage them to say, you kept your head above water all day. It should not be like that, but you should be proud of yourself. I'm going to use your tag. You should be proud of yourself to be able to hold it together so the patients were served, but this is not our plan moving forward. I don't know what the fix is, but I am going to come up with a game plan to let you know, or a game plan to fix this problem, because it's a problem. right? You're giving more information to your team. You're not, because we're, as leaders, when we're doing this and just using that toxic positivity, we're putting band-aids. Have you ever seen like a toddler that gets into a box of band-aids? Like that's what we're doing for our team. We've got one all over our body. It's just a mess, and we're just putting band-aids wherever we can just to kind of plug the holes for the moment. But it's also like that classic Looney Tunes cartoon where the boat's, sinking and they're putting their finger in the hole and another one comes up and another one comes up. It's just patchwork instead of actually taking that boat out and repairing it, fixing all the holes, and then reinforcing it. So there has to be factual evidence that you can give your teams of why you're being positive with them, but then also being okay with those hard conversations, okay with those things of saying, hey, I'm going to give you a compliment sandwich, but the in between is not going to be peanut butter or jelly. It's going to be, rotten anchovies. You might not like it, but it's the truth. And I'm going to tell you what you're doing well, but I'm also going to tell you what you're not doing well. And I think a lot of this can happen from the beginning of onboarding your team as a leader, saying, this is how I'm going to lead you. This is what you can expect from me. And this takes a big word, which not all of us like to hear. But it is important, as having discipline for ourselves as leaders to be intentional and communicate well with our team.
Yeah. Those who have true discipline have true freedom.
Yeah.
Whether it's discipline in working out, so you have freedom with energy and, your health and different things long term and short term, or discipline with your, with your team to have an effective team, and accountability and all these things. Like discipline is where it all comes down. And it's not black and white on discipline. It's not like you're disciplined or you're not. Like, it's how disciplined are you? Right? And you can become more disciplined. This was not easy to talk about. Not always fun, but I do enjoy having these conversations simply because it's needed. And so many people fall into these traps. I know we have on multiple occasions and still do sometimes, right? But I think that, the greatest investment you'll ever make is in yourself. So if you want your practice to be better, focus on investing in yourself this year. And everything else will kind of fall into place almost every single time. So Zach, do you have anything else before we close?
Kirk, I think last little thing, let me go back. Think about this when you're with your team. Are you motivating people or are you gaslighting them? Let's just be honest with ourselves. And then true morale comes from trust, not hype. I'm going to leave you with those two statements to really think about. It's super important. And just really just sit your next couple weeks and think about the things you're saying to your team, doctors and OMs.
Yeah, everybody loves being a hype man, but most people don't like telling the truth. It's painful sometimes. Well, guys, it's been another great episode of Management Unfiltered. Make sure to like, subscribe, do all the things, the YouTubes and the Instagrams and the Facebooks. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, comments, get in the groups, let us know what you want to hear. Zach, it's been awesome. Until next time. Come on, give me some.